Yeah, I bought it for 3.5. I don't remember it being on the market.
It was on LoopNet
I was
because I saw it.
My guy told me it was off market, which was more exciting. But yeah, I ended up buying it for 3.5.
Maybe
But she wanted 12 million right before the pandemic.
are we recording?
Recording. So if you want to start it off.
I'll just start it off. Let me
We
introduce
got a
you,
lot to
man.
talk about.
I don't want to spoil anything.
Sure.
Bobby, welcome to the show. I appreciate you stopping by, man.
Thank you. I'm excited.
What's your last name?
Soroory.
Soroory.
Yeah, perfect.
Soroory. I like it.
People have problems
Bobby
pronouncing that.
Soroory. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you, man. Thanks for coming on.
I'm excited to be here.
So we're talking about New Me Living. This is a new project you've got going on. A lot of people have probably recognized it right across from UT. It was that old motel.
That's right.
So we were just saying, I think I saw it on LoopNet listed somewhere at like 3.5. You were mentioning she wanted how much? 12 million?
12 million bucks. I mean, every time I would talk to her, it was a different price. It was a highly sought after site. Including the University of Tampa was pursuing it for years. Big real estate developers were pursuing it because of the land value. But it was never for sale. For whatever the reason, it was never for sale. And it was on my radar for many years. And I got the chance to meet with her right before the pandemic. It was like January 2020. She wanted 12 million. The world was beautiful. Nothing was going on, nothing wrong with the world there. And she thought her land was priceless, but I made the connection. I did the walkthrough. Obviously, I couldn't pay 12 million, so we, just parted ways after that meeting. And then, peak COVID fear in the middle of the summer, it was a good time to kind of revisit and say, okay, hey, what's going on here? It's an unflagged hotel. It's obviously just completely empty. Let's say hello. By way of an offer.
Wow.
So, made her an offer, and I was kind of surprised, but at the same time, I wasn't. She quickly responded, and we came to a deal, and I signed a realtor's contract to just get it under contract really fast because I knew there was going to be seller's remorse there,
Oh, yeah.
and there was.
Yeah.
There absolutely was. As soon as she signed, she was like, "Wait, what am I selling and how much am I selling it for?" But she stuck with me. She was a good, a great seller, and we got it done, and I'm excited.
Amazing, man.
Yeah.
Well, I had always eyed that project for a long time. And like you said, I'm sure a lot of investors did. I wasn't anywhere near being able to take on a project like that, but what an amazing opportunity. Obviously, you knew about the property before you bought it.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have the vision for it going into it?
I think instinctually it was always a student housing play for me. There's a lot of quirks with the building. It's a hotel. It's a 1960s vintage motel.
Right.
And just think from a permitting standpoint and turning this, it's an adaptive reuse project, right? You're converting from a motel to a different use. There's a lot of quirks. They're small rooms. But if you compare them to the dorms on campus, they're huge, right? So they're really nice, really large dorm rooms, and obviously right across the street, no other project can sort of compete with that. That's always going to be our competitive advantage, right?
Absolutely.
So,
a lot of the new projects too, kind of behind the University of Tampa, the large apartment buildings going up behind the train tracks.
Right. Oh yeah, that's an interesting project. Yeah.
Those are really cool, but for you and your project, you are literally right across the street. I mean, you might be the closest location to campus out of any other off-campus housing.
I think we are, yes.
That's amazing.
We are, and we have parking if you need it, but you don't need a car. Our motto is live on campus without living on campus. So you have, all the benefits of living on campus, but without the RAs, and it's going to be, family run approach and very like boutique hospitality approach on the management side. So I'm excited because it gave me the opportunity to really be creative on the design. And, we've been working on a lot of the infrastructure so far. That's why it hasn't really aesthetically changed yet, but it's coming in the next month or so. It's going to really turn around.
That's probably a big question for a lot of people. It appears, and I'm sure it hasn't, but it appears that it's sat there for months and months and months without anything going on. So that's infrastructure issues or hurdles to get past?
Yeah, so, This isn't our first adaptive reuse. We could talk about this project too, but we did the Aloft Hotel, and it was 1960s, just like this, vintage office building. In some respects, that renovation was easier because you just completely gutted everything and started from scratch, and you just kept the shells. But even in that scenario, that deal took 2.5 years to renovate. It's much faster to build a high-rise than renovate and do an adaptive reuse. So aside from the physical components of and the challenges there, the permitting. Remember, the narrative on this project is we are converting a 1960s motel that's totally out of code and converting it into residential, right? It's really complicated stuff. So for the first year, it was permitting, zoning, land use, planning, drawings. This stuff takes time. It took a year just to get the permit.
Wow.
So people from the outside tend to forget about these things, and there's a reason why not everybody does this. It's really complicated,
Right.
but that's what I love.
Did that seller own that property for a long time?
She did, yeah. She owned it for at least 20 years.
Wow.
I think 2001 or something like that. She's owned it since then.
She probably bought it for nothing.
She paid. I think she paid 1.5
Wow.
for the property. So 20 years later, she sold it for 3.5.
Doubled your money. Did
But,
okay.
yeah, she could have sold it for more, but
Yeah. Well, timing is everything, right?
timing is everything.
And I'm looking at this design now on your website. That I don't know if there's a way to make that stay on your website, but that design you kind of have up there, is that what it's going to end up being like, or have you gone through different iterations?
Several iterations. This was the concept with the cages and things that you see there. That actually turned out to be not allowed by the city. It's really complicated stuff. You think you're just adding a design element, and you're not. And the city always has something to say about it. So in this case, if you look at this cube on the over the balcony there, that actually looks like a balcony because there's railings. And we thought, okay, this will be a great centerpiece and a great area for kids to hang out.
Right.
Turns out it's not even a balcony because structurally, it's just a canopy. It's a roof canopy.
Oh, no.
But since they put railings there, it looks like a balcony. So we're actually going to remove that and make it look like a proper roof or a canopy and put a lot of greens. So think, I bring up addition, but obviously we're not building the addition here. But the addition, if you think about the design elements, it's a pretty simple building. It's a lot of neutrals, a lot of whites, and very lush, lots of greens. So that's sort of the approach we're going to take. Oxford Exchange is kind of the same thing. It's just, if you look at what it is, it's black frame windows, nice clean floors, and lush. And so that was sort of the approach we took here, to take sort of like a bohemian, boho Tulum sort of approach and mix that with sort of like an Oxford Exchange transitional sort of style. So some of the things that worked in our advantage to do that was the building already has black frame windows, right? So brand new windows, we didn't even have to touch that. Painted the building white, so now you have that black and white sort of design. The last thing that's missing here is like the green to make it really pop.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
It's going to turn out amazing. That building was always just a roach infested, crappy motel. It really surprises me that a guy like you, who has a very ambitious plan to take, a crappy property and turn it into something beautiful that we all drive by and we all want to see, we all want to live in a nice city. You would imagine the city would go, absolutely, Bobby, thank you for taking on this project. How can we help you expedite this process? It's just surprising that it would take a year to get approvals like that.
Well, there's no VIP service.
I was going to ask you, you're an experienced developer. Is that Tampa, or is that just in general kind of how that process works?
Yeah, nothing here was unusual. In fact, the city has been very supportive, like you said. They're absolutely behind this project, and they've been working with us. Um, they've been stern but fair is kind
Yeah.
of how what I would characterize our relationship with the city on this job. But they're absolutely supportive. This stuff is kind of like gravity, man. It's just nature. You know, you just can't move it any faster. And not to mention, our permitting and planning was during the pandemic and the supply chains and people out here in Tampa being busy. Um, so, you know, this is just kind of taking its course, and I'm not surprised how long it's taking. You know, just people from the outside think it's taking longer than it should, but honestly, we're ahead of schedule.
Good.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you're expecting students coming up this next semester and fall?
Yes, yeah, we're shooting for typically the student housing communities open up August 1st. August 1st to July 31st. That's sort of the cycle that we're trying to stay on track with.
Amazing. And how many units do you have here?
So we have the hotel has 53 units. But little fun fact was while we were planning and doing the permitting in the past year or so, we acquired the rest of the block there. So we've assembled other properties, which provides a great development site in the long run. One of the properties has a 4-unit, beautiful, historic 1910s vintage apartment building.
Could you pull up the map, Tyler, just so we can see where we're talking about here?
If you can go on the Instagram page, we just posted that, and so that we're dubbing that New Me House.
Yeah, I saw that.
So New Me House is our sister product. Very nice large units. If you want a roommate, that's the ideal situation for you. And then the same advantages, you know, walking distance to campus and shared amenities with New Me.
So that project for you, going into it, you kind of mentioned it was a student housing no-brainer. This was not meant to be long tenant apartments or anything like that. You kind of went in with the idea of student housing.
Yes. To me, that was always the instinctual, intent. But from an investment standpoint, you always got to cover your basis and think of, worst case scenario, what happens, right? So I knew I had options. There's plenty of corporate demand. There's plenty of short-term rental demand,
Well, you're so close to downtown too.
Exactly. So there's options. We asset manage our properties in-house on the operations side. So if I were to fail student housing for whatever the reason, I can turn it into a regular apartment building or short-term rentals. And there's always avenues.
That's awesome. Where are you from, Bobby?
Tampa, Florida.
Originally.
Born and raised.
Wow, a rare breed indeed.
Born and raised, man. You are too, right?
Yeah, I am. Yep. I would say born, not necessarily raised. I moved away when I was 11 years old, right before middle school. My parents got divorced, all that sort of stuff. Moved back 5 years ago.
Okay. Where'd you move to?
Sarasota.
Okay.
And then went up to Tallahassee for Florida State College. Moved back to Sarasota, lived there a couple years, and then moved back here a few years ago. Yeah. It's good to be back, though. I had always known. I remember even when I was 11 years old, moving away from Tampa, I remember thinking, like, I'm going to be back. I'm going to be back. I got to come back to Tampa. I love it here. I love this city.
Yeah, I lived in Los Angeles for about 5 years. Loved it. But kind of like you, in the back of my mind, I knew I was always going to be back in Tampa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you live in LA?
I was there from about 2004 to 8, 2003, 4 to about 2008.
What were you doing out there?
Going to school. Went to undergrad there. I went to so many schools there. But I graduated from Cal State Northridge with a real estate degree. And 2008 is when I graduated, and the market crash happened. The great financial crisis happened, and just came back. And there was so many opportunities here for me to start, meeting people and making deals happen. So
amazing. So you actually studied real estate in school in California.
Yeah.
Graduated. At that time, did you say, hey, I'm going to stay in LA, do real estate?
The intention was, to stay in LA. I had family there. It's a beautiful place. I lived on the beach in Santa Monica. I had no reason to move back. But it just never felt like home. Tampa's home.
Yeah.
we've had this amazing sort of growth spurt in the last couple of years, which to me still is, I can't believe what
It's
Tampa is evolving into and continues to evolve into. At that time, Tampa was a completely tertiary market. There was no institutional capital looking at Tampa, but it still felt like home, you know. And I knew good people here, and I had the opportunity to go to UT for business school, so it just made sense all around.
That's so cool. You went
Yeah.
to UT and now you're doing the student housing project.
Yeah, it was really come full circle. That's something I'm really just proud of, and it's pretty cool to be a UT alum and then provide, be a housing solution given the crisis that the school has right now with the housing shortage. It's just really cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
We had on the student president of UT's real estate club, and she mentioned that their applications skyrocketed in the last couple of years. They actually didn't have enough housing for the incoming freshmen, and it was, like you said, a real crisis. I mean, it was a real problem. So I'm sure the university is happy you're coming in and providing that housing for those students.
I hope they are.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. So going back to after you graduated and moved to Tampa, how did you get involved in all these real estate enterprises? What was kind of the first steps when you came back?
Yeah, I've had a very unique background and journey into this. So it's crazy to say, but I'm 38. I've been doing this since like 17, 18. So I've been doing this for 20 years, man. It's just weird to even to say. But part of, I guess, my advantage is I figured out what I want to do at a very young age. I knew I wanted to be a real estate guy. I knew that I didn't want to flip homes forever. I knew I just wanted to get into commercial real estate, whatever the hell that meant at the time. And so it just came with a lot of education, learning, what does Blackstone do? What is this company Blackstone on Wall Street? I know they're a huge landlord and they own skyscrapers. How do they do it? What do they do?
Right.
And just constant education on that front.
That curiosity is what sparked your interest, or was your family involved in real estate?
Family was not a real estate family by any stretch. My dad dabbled in real estate. But for me, it was just being a business owner, I think, was really the intrigue. But there was no actual business, that like an operating business, that intrigued me. Just owning buildings is what it evolved into. Is I would just want to own buildings, whether it's a house or an office building, whatever. I want to get into that. So that was sort of the quest to kind of learn that aspect of it.
And then 17, that's pre-college, right? So even before you moved up to LA?
Yeah, I was a senior in high school. I went to USF my first year, so I think I moved to LA around 19. But by that time, I did a few residential deals in Tampa by USF.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's where it started.
So that would have been, what year would that be? I'm just trying to think of like the market where we were at.
Oh, times were good, man.
Yeah.
2003. So basically from 2003 to 2006, 7, I mean, it was just the Wild West, and every bank would just lend you as much money as you want, 100% financing. And, a lot of people drank that Kool-Aid. I didn't. I was okay when the crash happened, thankfully. But times were good before the crash. And then times were good for me personally after the crash because there was just a plethora of opportunities.
Yeah. Make sure to keep that mic close too, because if you go far back, it kind of cuts out.
Yeah, I notice.
Yeah. And then Tyler, if you want to help him too, pull that up.
Sorry.
If you can just adjust it, no worries at all. No worries. Yeah, different times back then. I think there's a lot of young guys out there that have similar ambitions to you, and I was in the same boat. I found my college entrance essay last year when I was 16 years old or 17, and I wrote, I want to be a real estate guy. I want to own duplexes. I want to, so I had that ambition at a young age too, for whatever reason. Probably because I grew up in it. My mom she did some wholesaling here in Tampa.
Okay.
a little bit of renovations. This is 2000. This is like 99, 2000, 2001 here in Tampa. And she was also a realtor. So I just grew up in the backseat of her car. I guess that's where it came from.
That's excellent.
Yeah, man. But today, things are different. It's hard to even find a house that's able to be renovated and bought for under $300,000-$400,000. Right. Back then, financing was easier, rates were probably a little lower, and just home prices were a lot lower than they were. So it's just different times. I think it's a little bit trickier, but you just have to get creative, right? Like,
it's look, at any moment in time, it has its own challenges, right? I have so many examples. I owned a unit at Sky Point when it was first built. I paid, I think, $300,000 for that one bedroom in 2008. That was a lot of money back then. That same one bedroom is now selling for $600,000. So it's sort of like inflation adjusted and times adjusted, right? I mean, that I basically paid $600,000 at that time.
Top of the market.
Top of the market. And I sold it. I lived there for a good while. It was kind of like my bachelor pad. Had a good time there, and I sold it for a profit way more than $300,000. But it took about 9 years. My point is, whoever pays $600,000 for that same unit, probably in 10 years from now, it'll be worth more than $600,000.
Right.
I mean, that's the beauty of real estate, right? That's why time fixes your mistakes if you overpay. Generally speaking, I think we're still in the early innings of this sort of new growth phase in Tampa, and we're super lucky to be able to take advantage of that where other markets are suffering.
Yeah, I always say that too. If I'm talking to anyone, I say, look, we are so blessed to be the age we are, young, and be in the market we're in. We're on an upward trajectory. There's, throughout our entire career, knock on wood, praise to the heavens, everything's going to work out and things are going to keep moving forward. I would hate to be in the position I'm in California, Illinois, New York, places and markets where people are leaving. Everyone's coming here. Yeah. So we're just lucky to be here. So like you said, man, if you think you're overpaying for a property, just wait in 5 years when they finish up Daryl Shaw's project in Water Street. Just wait till all that growth has been built. People are not going to believe the prices.
I try to not be too bullish, though. You got to stay contrarian. So all of this is positive. Yes, Tampa has a great demographic trend going right now, but let me tell you, there's a storm brewing right now, and it's coming, and Tampa's not going to be unscathed by that. It just maybe it won't be as bad as other markets, but I mean, you know better than me on this, on the residential side especially, right? I mean, if you were to buy a house right now, what's the mortgage?
Yeah, it's 5.5%, 6+%.
Oh, that's not bad. Wasn't it just around 7?
It actually leveled off and kind of has tapered off, but it's still
5.5 isn't bad.
5.5 isn't bad, but that would be the most qualified you could probably get right now.
Right.
You're probably looking at 6.5.
What, about a month ago? I mean, it's so volatile, right? But like about a month ago, they were, like mortgage rates were about 7%.
Yeah.
And that's when, there's got to be some tapering off on pricing there. And then on the commercial real estate side, you're definitely seeing that. You're seeing people not being able to refinance, and insurance premiums have completely blindsided the commercial real estate market, more than doubling premiums. I mean, it's crazy what's going on in the insurance market in Florida. It's going to be an interesting ride the next couple of years.
It really is. The insurance thing is crazy too. We have a deal that's supposed to close on Friday, and they just got the insurance quote. It was like $15,000. They got one at $15,000 and one at $20,000, and this house is $1,150,000.
Wow.
So that's going to have a huge effect. There's new news, and I haven't looked deep into it, but something about how if you have a certain qualification, certain credit score on a mortgage, you're going to be paying a premium to help supplement some of the people that can't afford mortgages. There was something like that just came out.
I read about that.
I haven't looked into it, but all these little sort of things are kind of ancillary factors that put together are going to negatively impact our market. It always hits the investors first though, right? Hard money lending is like 13, 15, 18%. Some of the guys that have projects that they maybe should not have taken on, and it's like you mentioned, you don't want to be too bullish. Some of those guys are going to get taken out.
I think so. I've seen it, man. I mean, you were a baby last cycle. How old were you in 2008?
I was in high school.
Okay.
Old enough to know what was going on, but not in business yet.
Yeah, I was doing deals in 2007 and 2008 and 9, and most people that were active back then still remember it like it was yesterday and pretty scarred from that. It was bad.
Oh yeah.
We had the Silicon Valley Bank fail recently. Imagine that's Bank of America and Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase all going under all at the same time.
It's crazy to imagine.
And Bank of Tampa and Regions Bank, like everybody from small banks to large banks, it was systemic, it was just a huge domino effect. It was bad.
Where were you at exactly then? I mean, I know you were in real estate, but kind of where were you at? Were you flipping houses at that point?
No, I was, I finished my first townhome development site in 2007. It was a 28-unit townhome project, just a for-sale product. And luckily, depending on how you look at it, but on one hand, I was lucky. I sold the last unit before really the market crashed. It was right before Lehman Brothers crashed and went bankrupt. I sold that last 28th unit at peak pricing. So we had some cash, finished that project, and pretty quickly the prices changed. We were looking at properties before and after the same apartment complex. I mean, the prices went down 80%. And so we thought it was a good time to start acquiring multifamily projects on a larger scale.
Wow.
So we acquired, I think 500-600 apartment units locally. We still own one today. We bought that one. That's a great project. We bought that in 2010. It's a 202-unit apartment complex in St. Pete.
Okay.
We bought that for $6 million. $6 million. Today it's probably worth 60. And we've done a cash out refi. We own it for free.
Amazing.
And just this last cycle during the pandemic, it was time to refinance. So we got a 10-year interest-only loan at 2.8%, cash out refi.
Got your money back.
We effectively sold it to the bank at that point, right?
Right.
And we still own it.
Amazing.
So those were the sorts of opportunities and the growth that we've had over the last 10 years. Part of it due to our operations, part of it just due to how fast our city's growing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So it sounds like you kind of have two parts overarchingly to what you do in business. And one of them is that kind of buy and hold multifamily rental property, cash flow property. And then the other side's maybe more ambitious development, taking on projects like Numi, Aloft, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think every asset will tell you whether or not it's a long-term hold or not. Look, I've sold a lot of stuff. The problem I've had is everything I sell, I regret. I make some money, and then what do? I got to find another project, 1031 exchange where I pay my taxes on it, and then I'm spending it, right?
Yeah.
Until the next project.
Right.
And it's harder and harder to find the next project.
Yeah.
So to your point, right?
I've always had that thought too. I aspire to be you one day, man. I mean, having that many units and those opportunities and some of these ambitious projects, I think are amazing. But I think the same thing about all my deals. It's like I look back at every deal and they're worth more now than what I sold them for. And it's like, damn, if I could have figured out a way, whether it was through a private investor, a bank, whatever, to hold on to that property, put a tenant in there, God, you would have been better off, man, holding it. But conversely,
Hindsight's
right,
2020.
right.
Yeah.
And if you sell it and get the cash, you can go do other opportunities, which you couldn't do if you held the
100%.
property.
It's just a difference of philosophy. Some people, there's no right or wrong there. I'm trying to do both because I can't figure it out which one's better.
Yeah.
I know guys that they're just in the buy and sell business, and they 1031 exchange for 30 years, and at that point you don't need any partners, you don't even need bankers. And you're buying $20 million assets one after the other. Mm-hmm. And you're just in the buy and sell game. Nothing wrong with that. And that's something I'm trying to, I guess, pursue. My problem is, it's kind of funny. The problem I have is the deals that I find are so well located, it doesn't justify an exit. So I get stuck in them because they're so nice.
It's a good problem to have, I guess.
I guess, yeah. But I mean, look, ultimately everything's always for sale.
Yeah.
But in the case of that apartment building where we did a huge cash out refi and your money is at 2.8%,
Yeah.
you have no incentive to sell,
No.
right?
No, and it's kind of a tricky market for that product anyway, right? I mean, it maybe would have been better like a year and a half ago to sell anyway.
Yeah, if you wanted to maybe maximize the value,
Right.
you could probably still get pretty close to top dollar today.
Amazing.
But when you own it for free, right? That, to me, that's where like the old school real estate approach really, it's like generational sort of wealth, and just hold it. Yeah, maybe you're leaving money on the table, but I refinance, and my proceeds are tax free on the refi, and I can just take that money and buy more deals.
Yeah, you're almost using it as your bank.
Absolutely.
Right? You can go back maybe in
it's
another 10
tax-free.
years. Yeah.
Tax free. That's the huge component about it. So some people like to sell in 1031 and defer their taxable gains that way. Or you can just refinance, so long as it's conservative and you don't over leverage. You take the proceeds tax free and use that for the next deal.
And then in the same way, I mean, I'm sure you're eyeing this current market. You've mentioned you can see a little bit of a tapering off, maybe even a downward spiral. Have you built up the war chest to take advantage of some opportunities coming up in the next 24 months?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
The last couple of years, it's been just time to raise liquidity through these refinancing, take advantage of these low interest rates, try to get your entire portfolio fixed. I mean, dude, we've never seen a 2% mortgage rate. I mean, that's free money. Anything really under 4% is free money.
Yeah.
Even right now, if you look at like the 2-year treasury, that means you're lending the government money for 2 years. They're paying you 4%. It's risk-free, quote unquote, risk-free.
Right.
But that's sort of the basis of all returns, right? So if you have a bunch of cash and you should be earning at minimum 4% right now. That's the base case, right? I just borrowed at 2% on a $50 million multifamily. So it was just complete imbalance due to all the emergency procedure that the Fed did during the pandemic.
It's an unbelievable opportunity. I mean, you could even take that cash and roll it into a treasury and make your
100%,
double your return.
So another way to think about it, right? I borrowed that money at my mortgage rate of 2.8. I can take that cash and put it in a 2-year treasury and now earn 4.
Yeah.
Think about that.
It's kind of ridiculous. Right? It's unbelievable.
And that's what we do, actually, because you don't have a deal right away. So it's just cash management.
Is that something I'm actually not familiar? Can you put money in and then take it out, or are you locked in for those 2 years?
So the beauty of it is you can always take it out, you can always sell, but you're at risk of the market price at that time you sell, kind of like a stock.
Got it.
Right? So as of today, for example, the 2-year is like 3.9%. And just like cap rates, right? It's exactly like a cap rate. When the rate comes down, the value goes up. So if I bought it at like 4.2 and today is at 3.9, I'm actually in the money, right? Conversely, if I bought it at 4.2 and the 2 years like at 5, and if I want to sell, I'm out of the money there. I'm going to lose some money there. So my approach was, look, and that was kind of my big trade last year, was look, I can win in two ways. Worst case, I hold to maturity for 2 years and I just make my 4%. I actually think I bought at 4.5%. But my bet actually is that the rates will end up coming down. They've gone up a lot. And at some point in the next 2 years, it will stabilize. So best case, I can maybe make 10-20% appreciation in buying a U.S. Treasury. And if I'm wrong, okay, I'll just hold for 2 years.
Right.
And if I really need the money in between this time, and I really don't want to sell, you can borrow against it too.
20% is so insane when you talk about the low
Treasuries.
risk. I mean, you might literally be talking about the lowest risk investment that's available out there. And to
Yes.
make
In theory, that's why I loved it so much. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that was the trade of the year all last year, was buy the 2 year. And it went all the way up to close to 5%. And now it's at 3.9.
that's crazy.
Right? So
Yeah, I mean that kind of a, the lowest level of risk with that kind of a return is like,
Right.
why would you not do that
Exactly.
deal? It's unreal.
and then you compare that to a real estate deal. Well, why buy a 5 cap property when I can just put my money in a 2 year,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So everything has to be adjusted for risk and reward. And so that's why we haven't bought anything in the last year or so.
But you see some opportunities coming up and you're ready for them.
It's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming, yeah.
So kind of back to your deals, Numi Tampa, the Aloft Hotel. What are some other local deals that people might know about the deal, but they might not know you? Anything else that you've done locally?
I'm a partner in the property that has the Jacksons and American Social on Harbor Island. It's
Amazing.
called The Point. We acquired that in 2014.
Done some beautiful
and
renovations
have turned
recently
that
over
around.
there.
Yeah. We built the marina. It's about a 56 slip marina, and we can hold up to, I think, over 100-foot yachts at this point. We had to actually dredge the river there to fit larger yachts. So here's a good indicator of the market. We had to dredge that property to go from, I think it was from 80 foot to 100, and I think we did another round from 100 to up to 150.
Yeah. I was going to
If
say,
that doesn't tell you
Right.
The growth in Tampa, right, and who's moving here.
growing up, there never used to be big yachts right there, right in front of Jackson's. Now you drive by, there's like 8 huge boats
Right.
just parked right out front.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good indicator, right?
Yeah, so,
That's an amazing property, man. I heard Jackson's was actually looking to do a renovation themselves and kind of upgrade their menu. And
They did. Yeah, they turned it around. They did a pretty significant upgrade, and we helped them with that. They've been there forever, so they're doing really well.
yeah, that's
And
a
so is American Social. They're killing it. Our office tenants are happy. It's kind of like the center of town when events like Gasparilla and like the championship parades happen. It's just a great focal point of the city.
For sure. The waterfront is in general here in Tampa. I think Tampa needs to really lean into the waterfront. It's absolutely gorgeous. When I was born and going back to when you were born as well, it was neglected in a lot of ways. You and I both know, and the people that have been here for a while understand that, man, Tampa wasn't always like it was in the past 5 years. Tampa was extremely run down in the 1990s. I remember it very well. It was really not so nice to look at.
Yeah.
And there's still reflections of that around town. You can still, there's some potholes that need to be addressed and some sidewalks that lead to nowhere. So I think some people that have moved here in the last few years have a little bit of a misunderstanding of exactly where we're at. And I tell people, look, we were a not so nice place for a long, long time, and we still have some infrastructure and some catching up to do. But I think if you look at all the new developments and the institutional money coming here and some of the huge large scale projects like Water Street and Gas Works and all that, it's coming. It's coming. So it's like you just have to be patient. And if you want to be in a place that does have growth and is on an upward trajectory, this is the place to be. I think we're in the best market in the entire country.
I agree with you completely, man. I completely agree. It's, it takes, and you see this in other cities too, it takes someone like Jeff Vinnick and Bill Gates to partner up where, look, if I was a part of that deal, I want to make money, right? We're investors. that deal is not, it's, I hesitate to use philanthropic, but they're going to spend whatever it takes to get that deal done and not focus on the numbers, right? And that's on a massive scale, like a transformative project. That's what it takes. It takes somebody like that to see the potential and invest whatever it's going to take. And thankfully, they've done that and committed to that project. Daryl Shaw's is the same. You know, I think it was the founder of Under Armour who took on something similar in Baltimore, where he's from, and did the harbor project there.
Okay.
And, you know, a lot of these things from an investment standpoint, you're like, dude, this is just the numbers don't add up.
Right.
Right. But it becomes like a passion project. And, hey, I want to do something for my city. And so God bless Jeff Vinnick and Bill Gates for partnering up and transforming that area. And
That's so
that's
true.
just phase one, what we're seeing right now.
Right. That's what's nuts. I think when you look at that, you think, oh my God, what an incredible project. Amazing. That's about a third of what they've planned on in that area. And they've gone above and beyond in some of the infrastructure too. Just the way they've kind of reduced the street size for cars, and they've increased the sidewalks. They've done mature landscaping. They didn't probably have to spend half of what they did on some of those infrastructure improvements, but they've really built a community. And you go there now in Boulogne and the Pearl and some of these new restaurants, it's like you can go there on a freaking Tuesday night and it's packed and people are spending money and they're happy. And I don't know if the same thing can be said in a lot of other metro areas around the country. So not only for them to have that vision, but the stars aligned with COVID and people moving here, and everything worked out the way it did. And thank God they were prepared and had built such a nice place for people to land.
Exactly.
The that project. So I went to high school with one of the finance managers for SPP. He's since gone, but he saw phase one through. And I was asking him, like, dude, like, what's the underwriting like on a deal like that? Because they were all cash. They were all cash on that deal. They've since refinanced. The initial projection for those units, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was ridiculous. I mean, on paper, to sit down with an investor and to get them to be on board with that vision probably would have been impossible, like you said, if it wasn't Jeff Vinnick and Bill Gates.
Right.
Who the hell would have done that deal? We don't need to spend this amount on mature oak trees and these sidewalks and all this, you know, the materials they've used are so high end. He told me something like what they underwrote, the rent projections, the retail projections, everything. It's like over doubled what they've, you know, initially underwrote.
Yeah, and that's to surprise of the local guys like us. We can't believe it, but congratulations to them. They are over, probably even more now, but there was an article probably 18 months ago about how Huron, that nice apartment building there, is exceeding all their projections, and they're already at like $4.50 a square foot in rent. Rent per square foot, $4.50. Not too long ago, breaking the $2 a square foot was a huge barrier. And Related did a couple projects and kind of proved that market. And then we were like, whoa, you just went from $2 to $4 a square foot, you know?
Well, like we're
And they're full.
Yeah, they're completely full. I heard the top floor of the penthouse, the 3-bedroom, went for like $9,800 a month. I'm like, who the hell's paying that, man? What's going on? Where
A lot of crypto guys.
yeah, right. Let's hope that's not some weird bubble. Well, we'll see, I guess. But where Ish lives, Midtown, I think it's called the Nolan.
Yeah.
Is it the Nolan Novel Midtown?
Novel. There
Did you see
go,
what they got a door? Like $603,000 a door.
That's right.
So that high level institution price that has usually been demanded in a market like LA or New York, I think some of those eyes from the big boys, because of these projects, are now on Tampa like they've never been before.
They definitely are. I get calls every day, literally every day, from New York, Miami, California. Hey, we want to buy in Tampa, or St. Pete. There's even Sarasota. Central Florida is on the map and from a standpoint of the institutional investor, like never before. I think that $600 a unit, I could be wrong because maybe they refinance now, but it was all cash. You There was like no debt on it. And on a price per unit, that's really high. I think the record before that was about $400,000 a unit in Harbor Island. Last cycle, I think the record was about $300 a unit. So
Icon was that building on Harbor Island. That
500 Harbor.
Yeah.
Yeah. It used to be called Icon, I believe. Yeah.
Olympus it is now, I believe.
Oh, yeah, that's the one next door. Yeah, both of them kind of traded for the same price
Yeah.
per door. It was like $400 and $500 a unit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big number. I mean, it's a huge stake in Tampa, a huge vote of confidence in Tampa. But you have to also remember, the more you pay per unit, the higher rents have to go up, right? Now, these big institutional investors, they're okay with a 3% cap rate, I guess at the time when they bought it, right? But even them, they have the opportunity to buy a 2-year treasury and make 4% now, right? With all the cash that they're sitting on, right? So they just look at risk-adjusted returns. So you may not see as much as that going on right now.
You are, from what it sounds like, a very hyper-focused on this market. Do you do investing outside of Florida or any other markets besides kind of our Gulf Coast, Central Florida?
I do. There's a million different ways to sort of approach, I guess, my portfolio, right? Just think of one large pie. Out of that pie, I own and manage and operate my own portfolio and continue to add assets to that part of the pie that I feel comfortable in doing so. But in the commercial real estate business too, it's a partnership is a big part of the whole game. And so I have friends and partners who only focus on hotels, for example, and I invest with them on a passive scale. So at the end of the day, we're just trying to make money, right, and get a return on our money in the safest way possible. So I have a hotel. I have some money allocated towards hotels. I'm not operating the hotel. I rely on him to do the underwriting and make sure it's a good investment and the business plan is executed. So I do a lot of that too. And from that standpoint, yeah, we've invested all over the country.
Right.
Yeah.
You've always loved Tampa, though. With all this news coming out and all the growth, I'm sure it's just been very cementing to you. Like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm glad I moved from LA back to Tampa.
I've never regretted it for a day leaving LA. As great as it was.
It's beautiful.
And to me, yeah, I mean, look, when I lived in LA, I had friends in the Palisades and then Malibu, and I just envied their life, but they had the luxury of being born and raised in Malibu. I mean, think about that, right?
Yeah, it's insane.
And Tampa was like nothing. Like, they actually always said, "Oh, you're from Miami? I've never even heard of Tampa. Is it close to Miami?" People didn't even know what Tampa was not too long ago, believe it or not. And fast forward 10, 15 years later, now everyone wants to be here.
I know.
It's and they're
nutty.
really envying the lifestyle we have here. I think it's just funny, we're in that situation. But it's a great life, the secret's out.
Secret is definitely out.
Yeah.
There's also, I think there's driving forces here, right? I think there's a lot of people that are obviously attracted to this area because of the weather and the zero income tax at the state level.
It's an easy life.
It's an easy life, man. We're on the water. We're not too far from the beach. It's beautiful. I think we're also, interestingly, Tampa's becoming, and it really always has been, metropolitan. City feel, city vibe, kind of like what I was commending you for earlier. But Miami, to me, it seems like a little bit different of a lifestyle. Tampa really is like a city, like business, people in suits walking around. You don't find that as much in Tampa and Miami, rather. There's a lot of people from larger metros, New York City, Chicago, moving here. I think that's playing a big role in Tampa and why it feels like a city. You also look at projects like we discussed with Water Street, how that's very city. It's not like it's Miami with just condos popping up and there's no street level activation. What's kind of your vision for Tampa? What do you see Tampa as a real estate investor at the end of your career, maybe in 30 years?
That's a great question. I think I have had to recalibrate my expectations significantly. When I started heavily investing last cycle, so I think it was especially with Bob Buckhorn when he was mayor. His vision was, the river is the center of downtown. It's not the boundary of downtown. That was always the narrative, and it's still true today. I feel like not too many people know that though, and the river kind of is like this invisible boundary. But that's supposed to be the center of downtown. So all of that to the west is going to continue to grow. Numi falls right into that as the gateway of downtown. It is part of the CBD periphery from a land use standpoint, which basically makes it part of downtown. I think we are headed towards kind of a Miami skyline. I mean, look, you have Related Group who built most of Miami, and this is their second biggest market. What does that tell you? Yeah. Right? They're here to build high rises. And I think that's going to continue as long as the demand is there and they build a great product. So I think we will become a mini Miami from that standpoint.
So when you say your expectations have changed, they've increased.
Yeah. And that's due to the population increase. I'm just so amazed by, okay, so I'll put it this way. There was a time I would go to any restaurant and I would know everybody there. You may have had that experience. Or at least I would know a couple of people there. Now, first of all, it's impossible to get a reservation, right?
Yeah.
You have to know someone. It's kind of like Miami. You have to know the GM. You have to know somebody. Every restaurant's like always booked throughout the week. This is new stuff for Tampa. Right? You could go to, there was a time you could just show up to Burns and just have some dinner.
Yeah.
But now you got to know people. And it's not just Burns. It's like any restaurant, right? And further, you go there and it's just like new faces every time.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's really strange. I'm still not used to that. So that's going to continue. It's so refreshing to see all the young faces and all the young energy that stuff, the amenities that you and I have known about all our lives, it's being picked up on. And
yeah,
it's really cool to see that.
The shift is interesting for sure. Yeah, like Related owns the site right over the bridge on the West River. They've got those 2 towers
Massive
planned.
Project, yeah.
Massive. I think actually 3 towers planned.
Yep.
Two much taller ones.
$55 million for that land. Yeah.
Amazing. And kind of like you mentioned, it's going to take those investors and those visionaries that have that kind of money to come here and put that up. I guess the smaller guys are just here to do some of the smaller projects, but I don't think Tampa ever attracted those big players until really the last few years. Vinnick was probably the first, the original
Vinnick,
guy.
I think, probably had a lot to do with the institutional exposure. I mean, he comes from that world. He comes from Wall Street. So I'm sure that had a lot to do with putting Tampa on the map from that standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he bought the Lightning, I think, maybe 20 years ago. And according to the buddy I was talking about, he's been buying land in that area for a couple decades.
Oh, yeah.
So he clearly had the vision way before Tampa was
Absolutely.
anywhere close to what it is. Apparently he was looking all over the country for a team. And when he came to Tampa, he thought, holy shit, like an arena with a team for sale with all this vacant land around it. Oh my God, I'm just going to buy this team and create my own little city.
And he bought the team right. I remember he didn't pay that much for it. And the team has done so well. So
that's got to be a
good
piece of
investment.
it, right? Like the Lightning winning back-to-back championships, Tom Brady coming here, the Bucks winning the Super Bowl.
I think there was definitely a Tom Brady effect as well. Something else we really didn't touch on. I think there definitely was some of that. Mm-hmm. I mean, you saw. Kanye West is stopping by Tampa to watch the Bucks play.
Wild. Wild.
When have we ever seen stuff like this happen? Snoop Dogg, I think, showed up.
The best thing we ever had growing up was wrestling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had a lot of the wrestlers live in Tampa. Yeah.
We had like Hulk Hogan. We had some of the wrestler guys. That was our yeah, man, that's what we got. We had that in like Burns Steakhouse and Mons Venus. That was it. Now things are a little bit different. What do you pay? $170 million in 2010. that team is probably worth 10 times that, right?
Yeah, I would say it's $1
billion team organization, which is incredible. Looks like he sold a stake in the Lightning a year ago to a private equity firm. And then, of course, who knows what the plan is in the future, right? Are you looking at some of the development path? Obviously, you've mentioned west of downtown, and I think you're totally correct on that. I can see downtown moving in that direction. Numi is right in that path. What about Ybor City, Channelside, and kind of that other end of downtown? There's a shitload of development planned that way. Do you have any projects up in that area?
I don't. Actually, just yesterday, something came across my desk. I wish I could talk about it maybe next time.
Sure.
I'm looking at that. But I'll say that I'm interested in this project. It's a development project, only because for me, from my perspective, Daryl Shaw's project seems to be coming to fruition now. And you know, the story with Ybor, it's been through a lot of cycles of hype to turn it around basically all our lives.
Yeah.
And it's always stayed the same. And it's got great character, great history, but people have tried to turn it around or do whatever they want and hasn't come to fruition until now, it seems, with or without the raise, right? So that seems to have gained some real traction, and they have a big developer behind them, and the project seems to be capitalized and moving forward. So I think that's on its way to actually changing and growing, and I think that's bigger than Water Street, that project.
Oh, yeah,
If
man.
you think about it in context, we talk about Water Street.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be bigger than Water Street on a marina. I mean, it's kind of like hard to comprehend.
We had a guest on the show that had a comprehensive rendering of all the new projects in Tampa. He was, I would say he was halfway done with what's been proposed. People don't understand. I think we get a little bit lost, you know, with like Tampa Tomorrow as an example, right? Or any page. They put out renderings. They put out these exciting projects. People, oh, cool, whatever. People need to understand, add it up. What does this city look like if all this gets built in the next decade? You're talking about, I don't know, San Diego, Boston. Like, what are we looking at here? This is not Tampa anymore. If Water Street is finished in all complete phases, if Ybor Gasworks, Ybor South goes through along with Ybor Harbor, if all of this gets built, which, like you said, it's on the way to being built. The pieces are in place. Dude, we are looking at a city that has tripled 5x in size in just a couple decades. It's crazy to think about.
I know.
This map we've got pulled
I
out.
still don't believe it myself. It's unreal.
So right where District Tavern is, Tyler, you can kind of see it down in Channelside, right there kind of in the middle on the eastern side of the map. So right to the west of that, you can see a green spot. See the green spot, Tyler, on the west, south. It's like right there. Yeah. So Water Street is like that whole area right there. And like you said, Bobby, that Ybor South, I mean, it's like 3 times the size of Water Street on the water. And look at how popular Water Street.
Right?
It's crazy to think about, man. Being from
Take your
Tampa, it's
boat,
like
pull up to the marina, have some lunch. It's going to be wild. But that's like a decade-long sort of project, right?
Yeah, and I always say too, like maybe it's not going to happen this cycle. Like you said, you're probably going to see some softening in the market over the next very quickly here soon, especially moving into next year, election year. People get a little bit wigged out. Deals don't get traded. So it might not happen this cycle, but the money's there. The people are in place. They have like coastal construction over there. Kettler's working on the development side. They've got the people.
The money will come. Yeah, the money will be there. Daryl's done. I mean, he's devoted his whole professional career to just accumulating land in Ybor, you know, for the past 20, 30 years. He has a plan. He has a vision. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to take also 10 years, at least.
At least.
Yeah.
He owns my family's old building where Rock Brothers is on 8th Avenue. It's on the corner of, it's right across from, what the hell's the name of that new restaurant? It's phenomenal. catty corner to a trolley station, right across
Oh,
from the brewery. Not the brewery. It's a distillery.
Casa de Stefano, that one?
No. On the other side of Ybor. I forgot the street, 8th Avenue and something else, kind of near Central Ybor. But Tyler and I were looking for an investor in Ybor, and we were looking at just who owned what to see if there was any people that had owned for a long time that might be willing to sell. And literally half the properties we looked at, and I'm not even talking big parcels, I'm talking single family homes, duplexes, everything.
Right.
An entity tied to Daryl Shaw.
That's right.
And it became very clear that he doesn't just own the 40 to 60 acres that a lot of people imagine with gasworks in Ybor Harbor. No, he owns deep into eastern Ybor City, past the Columbia restaurant.
Okay.
So he clearly in his head has a vision further beyond the renderings that have come out. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that's single family homes and other different apartments.
I don't know.
But
that's the power of assemblage.
Right.
Where, look, the name of the game is I'm just going to keep accumulating for decades. Going back to our discussion of should we buy and sell, I mean, he's had opportunities to make a ton of profit. He probably borrows a little bit along the way to, keep buying or just use the cash flow for something. But he holds, right? So that resonates with me a lot, just buy and hold. As long as it's a great asset, I think New Me, at least the plan is to hold forever. One day we'll develop it. And why sell that? It's going to be a brand new building,
right?
In a premier location.
Pass it on to your future children.
Yeah.
You were mentioning too, you're assembling some land around Numi. You've bought a couple of those properties.
Right. Yeah.
Tyler, could you zoom into Numi just so we could see kind
Sure.
of the other projects you've got going on, or at least I guess we'll hear your vision on kind of what you would imagine this kind of area turning into. Right there, south. Keep going down South Boulevard, right there on the corner. Numi Living.
Right there, yeah. Yeah, so you see the building with the red roof to the south right there, yep. So that was just under an acre of a site. A developer has acquired that, and that's just right behind us. And they got a 22-story approval from a land use standpoint, and they're getting their building permits now. We supported their project. We were happy to do so. Mainly because, look, once that project is approved, that whole block becomes super high density. And they went ahead and took that risk and proposed something with the city and got it approved. So huge win for them, huge win for us.
Is that how it works, Bobby? If a property on a block gets upzoned, then the rest of the properties have a better chance?
Better chance, exactly. Nothing's guaranteed, but it sets precedent.
Okay.
Right? So now our argument is a lot stickier than, like, in other words, if they denied this project and we want to go build a high rise, we still have a good shot. But imagine now saying, well, look, you just approved a 22-story tower on a smaller site next door.
Right.
So that's sort of the idea. So they, I'm not sure if they're going vertical now, but at some point they will. And so just to the north of that is the site that we have acquired, that green space to the east, and obviously the hotel. So you put that together, it's over an acre. And there's something called a floor area ratio. We have a 7 floor area ratio because it's part of the CBD periphery, which means you can build 7 times your acreage. So 1 acre is 43,560 square feet. So you can build at least 7 times that in terms of square footage. So we should be able to get, give or take, 25 stories. And we have a myriad of uses. I mean, it doesn't have to be student housing. If that market gets saturated at the time we want to consider building that, it could be market rate apartments. It could be a hotel. It could actually even be medical use. Tampa General parking garage is right next door to us.
You've got so many options right there.
We have options. So,
like you said, why sell it?
Yeah. I mean, right? Someone else, sell it to someone else so they can do it.
You're playing Monopoly, bro. I love it. Like
I'll figure it out. I'll do it myself.
I love what you're doing, man. Like you've done what I've always wanted to do, and getting into that commercial space. I think it's super interesting. What about Green Planet Smoke Shop? What's the deal with
What
that?
about it?
What's the deal with that building? Not the smoke shop, the building
yeah.
we're talking about here.
It's still there. I don't think they're going anywhere.
Yeah.
And actually,
Have you approached them?
Yeah, I have for many years. And to the west of that, there's a little parking lot. Actually, UT owns that parking lot.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
That's going to be a part of this whole puzzle in the long run. But the beauty is, look, I don't need the UT lot. I don't need the smoke shop. I have my development site now. I have my 1 acre, and it's all contiguous. So if I were to ever acquire those sites, it'll 100% be accretive. I will try to pursue it, but I don't need it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my base case is covered.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity.
And I believe technically South Boulevard is the first street of downtown or the CBD. In other words, the gas station on the other side of South Boulevard is not considered CBD periphery.
Yeah, Snow Park for a long time was, I believe, the smallest city park. I don't know if it is anymore.
right?
This was, Snow Park has been, that's that little piece right in front of where Flybar,
Okay.
who they just went under or something like that, I just heard.
Yeah, they just closed.
Which sucks. That was kind of a cool spot. But right there, it says, welcome to downtown, Snow Park. So a lot of people don't know. Downtown really is on the west side of the river. Yep, check it out. Right there, it says, welcome to downtown Tampa.
Interesting. So, hell of a site.
Hell of a site.
Hell of a site, man.
Hell of a site. And then, of course, you still have this project to finish, see it through, make it.
There's plenty of work to be done. Once the renovations are done, now we have to open and operate and manage. It's always something.
Definitely.
We're right now I'm just focused on finishing the construction and getting open for the fall semester.
Yeah.
So
down on the back side, just curiosity, there's been a huge portion that's been ripped up. There's like piping sitting out, stuff like that. Is that part of the infrastructure you were talking about that had?
On our property or the bank property? That's probably the bank property.
Well, it was right behind your building. It looked like some sort of a sewer, a large pipe that was ripped up.
That's the bank property.
Oh, is it the bank property?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although we're doing a lot of underground work too, so maybe depending on where it was. But yeah, we're so it's funny. They're doing their own underground work, so are we.
Okay.
But yes, to answer your question, yeah, we're redoing the plumbing in the building.
Amazing.
Redoing the electric. Spending a lot of money where I don't get an ROI on that spend, so it's been painful, but it's worth it.
Did you know that going in? I mean, did you think, okay, this thing needs a little bit of work?
We did, but I thought we could. I didn't think it would be a complete replacement of things. I thought it'd be bits and pieces. But then as you keep digging and as you keep opening more doors, and you just realize, what, path of least resistance has just changed the whole thing.
It's interesting to me on such a smaller scale, like if I'm doing a remodel like this office building, or like if I'm flipping a little house, the same is true there. So in a weird way, it's comforting for me to know, like, as I level up in my business and I take on larger projects, it's real estate, from what I've understood, is extremely similar across the board, whether you're flipping a home or you're, air quote, like flipping this motel into student housing. It's some of the same issues. Have you seen that throughout your career? Because you've gone from flipping houses to now larger commercial construction projects.
Yeah, I mean, renovation work is always, there's always a risk to, you don't know what you're going to uncover and how extensive is your renovation going to be. I mean, dude, this is just problem solving. This is what this job is. Every day I'm problem solving. Every day something gets thrown at me where it just seems impossible or just expensive, and you gotta like take a deep breath, figure it out, put the right team in place and make sure they execute. That can go for a house, that can go for a commercial building. Building is a lot easier, so I'm looking more into new development projects now.
Okay.
but this has been a great experience.
Yeah.
A lot of challenges with this building, but that's where you also make money. That's, I'm not trying to buy a stabilized, beautiful property, right? I'm a real estate guy. I'm trying to get my hands dirty and add value where I can.
Yeah.
Whether that's adding value on the management side, something that's just not operating optimally. In this case, it was just a complete change of use. And you get to better the community in that corner.
For sure.
But yeah, if this thing was a beautiful student housing building and someone else did the work, I'm not going to buy it.
Yeah.
I'll go buy my 2-year treasury.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Right. Because then you're not a real estate guy. You're just a guy with a job who's, putting some money in real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the stuff we look for, as complicated as it is, and the headache that it is. That's sort of the job description.
But that's what
we
you
look
like
for.
too, right? That's what you mentioned. Your vision was when you were 17 years old.
Yeah, I'm kind of addicted to it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful addiction, man. Real estate.
It is, and it actually helps me calm down because I'm so aggressive. I always am looking for deals and opportunities and how I can find the next property. But I think about it, I'm like, look, there's no amount of money that I'm gonna, like X amount of dollars in my account where I retire. I'm gonna do this till I die. I'm gonna be the 80-year-old man, hopefully, buying buildings. Like, this is just what we do,
How long have you and your wife been together? Is she on board with the vision too?
I think so. I hope so. Yeah, we've been together for 7 years now. Been
Why
married
aren't
for
you
4
home?
years.
Come back home.
No,
Spend more
she's not-
time.
she's not like that at all.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I've really been lucky that my wife is on board with what I'm doing too. And I think a lot of young guys need to understand that when you pick a mate, really look for someone who believes in you and who is aligned with you. Because if you have that kind of talk in your ear walking out the door, you're going to be held back.
The biggest, most important business decision of your life is who you marry. 100%.
Yep.
So that's good to hear. Yeah, you absolutely need support.
Oh yeah. It's a big endeavor, especially what you do on paper and reality is so risky. I mean, like you mentioned, this isn't just an investment you're purchasing. No, this is a multi-million-dollar endeavor. A lot of money on the line. Things can go wrong. Markets can shift.
No, exactly. I was going to touch on that.
Yeah,
Think
please.
about the financial risk that I personally take, and as a couple, she has to take with me now because she's married to this crazy guy, right? So that's a big part of it. And she's absolutely supportive. I don't think she realizes the guarantees we have on our properties and stuff if things go sour, but that's okay. She doesn't need to know exactly all the details, but we take big risks. I say, I think a good analogy is a real estate developer is like an owner of a sports team. You own the team now, but you probably put some debt on it. You have to hire the GM, the players, the coach, make sure all these people execute. And you better be right because you have your personal guarantee. You've borrowed money against it. So your job as the owner of the company is to make sure you put the best people together to execute your vision.
I love that. Yeah.
That's really what a developer is. So each building is sort of like a team. I'm not a contractor. I'm not an architect.
You're not swinging the hammer.
Yeah, I'm not a construction guy. I'm just the guy that took the risk and did my underwriting, feel confident about that. And but I better be right. I better pick the right people to execute that. And I have to manage through that and guide people through that.
Yeah, I love that. What a great analogy. Super intuitive. You're building a house for yourself personally, but you just mentioned that you want to get more into new construction because you said easier, but maybe that's the short answer of explaining the reason why you would like to potentially make that shift. Any new construction projects that you can specifically talk about, or at least ones that you want to get into?
Yeah, there's a number in the pipeline where I really can't talk about it yet, but I'll tell you why I'm interested more. Yes, it's easier when you compare it to just renovating a building. in the sense that, you just get drawings, you hire an architect, you design everything on paper, you hire a GC, okay, go build it,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
You just follow the plans. Whereas here, there's surprises along the way, and your plans modify, and you have to meet code. And is it worth pushing back and saying, hey, city, I can't meet the code because it's financially unfeasible to meet the code. And that takes time to do so. And you have to pick and choose your battles along the way to get it to the finish line. That's the crux of the difference between the two. So that's why I say it's easier. For me, I'm starting to get into new development because of actually the land use aspect of it. I really enjoy land use, buying properties, rezoning them for higher density or whatever it may be, right? And knowing the nuances of particularly, City of Tampa land use. This is how exciting my life is these days. I watch the city council meetings on YouTube, and you won't believe how educational that is, to see other properties after all the work they've done, all the money they spent. Now it comes down to showing up at city council and hoping it works out for you. And there's strategy behind that, right? There's an approach to that. Which lawyers are you hiring? Do you have neighborhood support? Did you reach out to the specific organization that how they may or may not react to you? So that part has actually been really educational. You won't believe this, and you find deals, on the deal flow side, because these things aren't really talked about in the paper or anything until they're closed or rezoned or capitalized. So here you find, oh wow, this property, a big developer has it under contract. Oh, I know that attorney. I know he only works for big developers, and they're rezoning this. Oh, let me go see what else I can find maybe in this area, because now I have intel of the growth going on in that area.
Interesting.
So even my house, from a land use standpoint, was very complicated. The lot's been sitting there. It's an established street, fully built out. No one's ever sold their home on this street. And this land was just encumbered by all these easements. And everyone just thought, you can't get these easements released. I ended up taking the risk. I thought that I could. It took a year and a half to get all the easements removed.
When you go to buy that house, do you have a contingency in your contract, or you already purchased and closed the property?
So the way I structured that was I had a long due diligence. Not too long, but I think I had 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
So in that 4 to 6 months, I had to do the homework to assess the probability of getting my easements removed, So I did take the risk by actually closing before the easements were removed. But at that point, I just kind of knew that I could get it done, And we got it done. But it took 18 months. It took, on a residential lot, it took about 150 grand in legal, engineering, tree surveys, dealing with EPC, all sorts of things,
So complicated.
But yeah, that's what I really enjoy. And that's where you unlock a lot of value.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Well, like you said, everyone looked at that lot and thought, oh, you can't do anything with it. It's encumbered by easements. It just took a guy to take on that risk. One of the ones I was following really closely and I was super interested in was the Kojak's property.
Yes.
The Kojak's property, if people don't know,
I had a property there.
Old school Tampa property. That restaurant's been around for a long time. Barbecue joint, fire, amazing. I hope they bring it back in some way. I think they actually moved to Carrollwood. You never went to Kojak's? You obviously know about it being from Tampa.
We had an apartment building next door, like 1 block north of Kojak's.
Oh, really?
So I used to drive by there every day and always wanted to stop by and eat there, but never had the chance.
Dude, it was legendary Tampa barbecue. They had dry rub on their ribs. That's what was unique about them. They didn't do like the big saucy ribs. It was like a dry rub, and it was phenomenal. But that property is on, I don't know the size, man. I think it's a few acres, right on Gandy Boulevard in Bayshore. Unbelievable location. The issue there was the oak trees, if you're familiar with that story. That developer purchased and closed on that property. They had a townhome project prepared, And they went to the council, and the council basically said, no, you can't do this project. You have to keep the oak trees. Developer said, well, we're going to tear out the oak trees and it works for our site, and we're going to plant new oak trees. No, you can't do it. They ended up bagging the deal and actually sold it to Blake Casper. And I think Blake
That's right. That's
yep.
right, yeah.
And he just paid 4.8, something like that for the site. I don't know what his plans are. I think it would be phenomenal if he brought back Kojak's. I know he's a restaurant guy. We'll have to see what happens there. But that was an interesting one. I did follow, and I watched those city council meetings. That was kind of cool for me to see. Just because I'm a residential guy, I'm not in that space.
Got it. Yeah. That's a big part of development. I mean, that's all of it. You're preparing for this city council, approval.
Yeah.
Right. And how to get there. But again, there's like an approach to it. I think Blake's going to do something really nice with that.
I think so.
Whatever
too.
it's going to be a beautifully designed.
You know it, right?
Project.
I mean, everything that they've done, that whole Oxford Commons group, they always do a good job. That's Oxford Exchange, Stovall House, Predalina, I think is the name of the new place.
That,
yeah. There's a little
it's gonna
tour
be
next
gorgeous.
week. You're going to be there?
I saw that. If
Yeah.
I could make it, I'd love to be there.
I think it's May 4th. I don't know. This will air after. I don't know if we can talk about stuff like that.
Yeah.
They get a little touchy, but yeah, man, I'm sure it's going to be phenomenal. He's another interesting visionary that I'd love to get on the show. He did a little kind of get together with some of the junior members of the Stovall, and he explained his entire vision for what they're trying to achieve and kind of his background and his story. He's another guy like Vinnick and Shaw and some of these guys that are investing so much into Tampa and into this community, not only dollars, but just the actual execution of their vision.
That's right.
That man has totally elevated Tampa. Like Blake Casper and their group has totally elevated Tampa.
100%.
They bought Mad Dogs and Englishmen. I know they're going to redo that property down McDill, build out a new restaurant. It's going to be amazing. And we'll see what he has in store on Gandy Boulevard.
And what he's done with Stovall House is just gorgeous. Just
It's incredible.
Really, if at all possible, he's changed Bayshore from that standpoint. It's just a gorgeous property.
Yeah.
Anytime I have there was a time when I had people visiting Tampa, I would take them to downtown St. Pete. That's the place where I want to impress people with my hometown. You go to downtown St. Pete, right?
Yeah.
Now it's Stovall.
Right.
That's my first impression for my friends.
That's so
Let me
funny.
take you to Stovall.
You don't even feel like you're in Tampa when you're on that property. It's done so well.
I know. It's gorgeous.
From a real estate development standpoint, wow, what a project that was. I think he paid 10 for the property.
Yeah, I remember that. I can't imagine what the build out cost.
I think he said it was more than he paid for the property. So
I believe it.
who knows, 15, 10, I don't know.
I believe it.
So well
But that's
executed.
what it takes. That's what it takes to bring transformative sort of projects to fruition.
I think people
Things are expensive, man. Materials expensive, labor's expensive.
Yeah.
Thankfully we have guys like him that have just amazing taste.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling you earlier, we just need more of that.
I think so.
Yeah.
I believe there's a demand for it. I actually wanted to do, I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if you're in the single family space, but there was a house on Andros and Colbert Isles. It's a gorgeous 1980s construction, all block, beautiful, beautiful elevation, nice big lot, pool, beautiful old house. Just needed some love and some TLC.
Sure.
My plan was to buy it. I think it was listed at $1,850,000. I would pay full price. I was going to go in, spend a couple $100,000 and make it look like the studio, like make it look like this office, like make it look like the Stovall, just a beautiful high end. I don't know what style it is. You mentioned bohemian. Maybe that's the right word.
Okay.
But just turn it into this beautiful, beautiful home ready to go. Right. I saw a pinch in the market because there's so much new construction out there. A lot of people don't want to wait. A lot of people are moving here right now. I figured you could get 2.4, 2.5 for it. That would be a record for that community. But
In Colbert Isles?
for that square footage and year built and with
I
those
see.
comparables. Not a record for the neighborhood.
you
Some of
could,
those homes are 8, 10,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
on the
But
water.
I'd imagine you could probably sell that for $700-800 a foot, right?
100%. Especially because it's move-in ready. You know, like I said, there's so much new construction out there. I think that's an interesting niche. And once I sell my condo project, I'm going to get into it. Higher end remodels on homes because you can turn them around quickly. Homes that were built kind of like this office era, right? Like 2004, they're up to a little bit higher level of code. They're usually block construction. They have architecture where you can blow some walls out and modernize it without doing some serious engineering. A lot of it's just cosmetic. Like this office building, like I was telling you off air, this thing kind of came as is, and we just did paint, trim, floor, and some nice finishes. And we turned this thing around in 8-10 weeks. You can't do that with new construction. Going back to what you're saying, why you like new construction more, I think I like existing construction more in certain aspects because it's a quicker turnaround. Especially today, we're a little bit in a volatile market. Again, Tampa's the best place. I wouldn't want to do what I do anywhere else, but it's nice to be able to get in and get out of a property quickly versus buying the land, going through the zoning, whatever plans you have, waiting, 12, 18 months construction. I don't know the market in 2 years at the end of that deal.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I was thinking about residential recently, where if you're like a buyer of a $2 million house, what incentive do you have to go not purchase a brand new construction home, right? Because they're popping up everywhere, even in like really sought after streets around town. So the person that has a gorgeous house, but it's 10, 15 years old, and on a price per foot, it's still worth $2 million on a great street, what have you, has a tougher time maybe selling. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, the issue there was inventory, like I was saying. Now that's shifting. There's a lot more inventory now than there was 6, 8, 10 months ago. So it was always, well, this house is 10 years old and that house will be finished in 9 months, but it's not ready today. And I'm a buyer and I'm moving here from Atlanta. My job moved me here. I've got a great job. I need to buy a house.
Got it.
So it was inventory was the big holdup for a long time. As a lot of these projects are completed in the next probably 6 or 8 months, because a lot of them were started with the frenzy of last year, you might see that. Yeah, you definitely might see a bunch of new construction pop up, and then some of the older homes might have to get realistic about some prices.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to what we were saying earlier with a little bit of price decreases.
I think so.
I don't think it's going down 20%, but I do see a softening.
20% is not that much. It sounds big, but what, on a $100,000 home, it now sells for 80.
Yeah.
It's not that unrealistic, right?
Well, I was kind of talking
$1
about
million home
right.
sells for 800.
Yeah.
You can see that. That's not that bad.
Well,
in fact, you're probably seeing.
Depends who you're talking to, right? I guess if you're talking to the guy that just paid $1 million for his house and now he wants to sell it, and his realtor says only worth 800, bro. I'm sorry. That's a problem. Depends who you're talking to for sure.
That's when you call me. I'll come buy it for 20% off.
There we go. You ready to strike with that war chest?
I think so, man.
I love it.
We always are.
Yeah.
Hardest part is finding deals.
Right. Yeah. There seems to be more out there though. From what I've seen, it's every day there's more opportunities and more properties listed, and I don't think that's going to change. I think we're going to continue to see more available.
Yeah, I think you just have to be willing to pay a premium for well-located assets.
Yeah.
If necessary, and try not to over leverage. As long as you can, sometimes it makes sense to overpay, as long as you don't over leverage, right, to secure that location. I mean, the residential market's hasn't really slowed down, at least not here, right?
No, we're very insulated here because there's so many people moving to this area.
So,
yeah.
And rates are high, or at least they were very high not too long ago. I think inflation and all that stuff is subsiding. So I think we've reached pretty much close to peak interest rates. I hope I'm right. So if that's the case, then yeah, the slowdown should hopefully not be too bad. Not be too bad in residential, but in commercial, it's a much slower, lagging, and it just drags on for years. So you're going to see problems there.
I think so. We're still getting calls from people around the country wanting to move here that are higher end buyers, and moving into the election year next year. I think that's only going to increase. You know, no matter what you think, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, it's a fact that there's people leaving some of these states that are creating these policies that aren't advantageous for business owners and high net worth individuals. And anytime you drive out high net worth individuals out of one state into the other state, the receiving state, you're going to have that demand. And with increased demand is increased price. It's just the way it is. So we are insulated here because there's so many high net worth people moving to this Gulf Coast region, Tampa,
Right.
St. Pete, Sarasota. On an overall macro scale, if you watch the news, you might see prices falling by the 20%. I don't know that it'll be as severe in our market, but time will tell.
We'll see.
We shall
Have you
see.
seen what's been going on in Austin?
Yeah,
Another hot market, but it's really cooled down a lot.
yeah,
I don't know as to what the reasonings really are. I know in commercial it's just completely oversaturated, and all the big money went into commercial there.
yeah.
Austin's having a tough time.
Austin's an interesting
But
city.
Austin has a lot more land, I guess, in theory, than at least Tampa does.
Yeah.
So they can always add more supply. But zero tax state, obviously, and it has all the benefits that we have in a lot of ways. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's an interesting case
I
study
agree
for
with you.
Tampa.
I agree with you. I think we should, on the residential side at least, be insulated. We're still relatively cheap, like relative to the country and relative to the world. Tampa's, risk reward, or however you want to look at it, lifestyle to cost, the value proposition is very high. These guys moving from Chicago, they sell their $4 million apartment and buy a $3 million house on the water here. That's a steal.
Yeah, it is. We're still cheap. And I also think that Tampa has a unique opportunity to become an extremely expensive market like San Francisco, some of these high barrier to entry markets. Because of, like you mentioned, a city like Austin, you could build that place out forever, like Dallas or Houston.
Yeah.
I mean, that place can go wide. Tampa is an extremely high barrier to entry because of our waterways. I mean, South Tampa, where are you going to go in South Tampa? South Tampa is South Tampa. And there's so many people moving into that area, those prices are only going to go up. I could see houses on Bayshore one day approaching 20, 35 million, $40 million. How long it takes, I don't know.
But we are missing one big thing, and Tampa is improving on this, and that's jobs, high paying,
That's a big
consistent
one.
jobs, a headquarters of a major company moving here. We've always been known as like a back of the office or a sort of city. We get a couple of headquarters moving here. That's when you're going to start seeing what you just mentioned.
I think so. Yeah, we really don't have that. I think we have a good foundation for sure, right? We've got the large port, we've got a phenomenal airport. But you're right, some of those large companies, I know Pfizer signed a lease in Tampa Heights. There's some,
But look at Austin.
right.
Austin has freaking Tesla
Yeah.
and who knows what other like
Huge Google
regional-
offices.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is the difference between Austin and Tampa.
I think so.
In terms of the last cycle. But yeah, that's where I think, we obviously talk about transportation. That problem needs to be worked on, the quality of the roads and infrastructure, and then just a couple of headquarters from large or regional companies. That's the missing piece to take this to the $20-30 million homes on Bayshore.
We had to get Tom first. Tom Brady was the first
Yeah.
step.
Yeah.
Now that we're on the map, companies, come to Tampa. We need you.
That's right.
Well, listen, Bobby, we've gone over an hour and a half now. I really
Really?
appreciate. Yeah, man.
Oh, man.
Goes by quick, right?
It went by fast. I enjoyed it.
Dude, I appreciate you coming on, man. This was
Thank you.
awesome for me. Like, I aspire to do what you're doing one day. So to hear it from your mouth and to listen to what you've done and how you've done it, thank you, man.
More than happy to.
I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
If people want to follow along on your projects or you personally, where can they find you?
I guess my Instagram page is fine. It's BOBBAC_S. Or you can just email me if you have any questions. Always happy to stay in touch. It's first initial last name @gmail.com.
Beautiful. And then students interested in NUMI, do you have a website?
Yes, thanks for mentioning that. NUMI Tampa, that's NUMI, Tampa.com. We have a wait list there. It's growing every day, and we hope to get in touch with you in the next month or so.
Get in, folks. Get in early. All right. Thank you.
right.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.